I finished reading 12 books this year and I wanted to share them with you. So I'm here again at the Christmas tree with a hot cocoa. So Christmassy, so festive. So honestly, to me, it's a very big achievement that I've managed to finish reading 12 books. So I thought, let's share this achievement with all of you. So I have finished 12 books and I'm reading 2 at the moment. I'm gonna talk about the books in chronological order, so let's start with the first one, The Midnight Library. It took me such a long time to finish this book. I honestly didn't like it that much, and I think it's a very unpopular opinion because there are so many people who really enjoyed and loved reading this book and love reading Matt Haig's books. Unfortunately, I didn't like it that much. I felt like the necessity of finishing it, even though I didn't like it very much. I felt like the main character was a very negative person, which I honestly don't like. But yeah, the fun part of it was that it went through different lives. This was the first book I finished this year. Then the second book is a Dutch book, which is called My Naam is Selma. I'm not sure if it's a legit biography, but it's a book she wrote herself. It's about this woman, a Jewish woman who survived the camps during World War II. And she writes about literally her whole life, like from when she was young all the way to now. It was such a beautiful book and it made me cry a few times because it was so terrible, like the things that she has gone through. It really was a great book. I honestly don't know if it's translated in different languages. I really hope so. I'll let you know because I highly recommend reading this book. Then the third one I finished is again a Dutch book. I don't have it with me now. I lent it to a friend. It's called Amalia. It's about the heir of the throne of the Netherlands. She's the daughter of our king, so Princess Amalia. Somebody interviewed her and spent time with her, talked with her and everything, and wrote a book about her. I really liked the book. It was a very thin one. It wasn't too many pages. I would have loved for it to be a little bit more detailed, but in the end I really enjoyed reading the book and getting to know her a little bit better because there's not too much we know about her, so this was a very fun way, and it was in honor of her 18th birthday that this book was written, so I think it was a very nice one. The rest of the books are all fiction. So let's start with the most popular one of the whole year, I feel like. It Ends With Us, which started my love for reading mostly Colleen Hoover books. I read this book when I was at Curacao with my family and I brought 3 books. I only managed to finish this one, but I loved it so much. I read it in a record time for me. I read it in 4 days, maybe, or 5. I can't remember that well, but I remember that I just couldn't put this book down. I loved it so much. I was going through this book so fast. Of course, it's a very intense book with like the things that happen in it. I'm not going into too many details, by the way, just so you know, because maybe there are books that you still want to read and I don't want to give you any spoilers. This was really my favorite book of the whole year, I think. No, best for last. But I really enjoyed reading this. So yeah, I was so curious. I used to, I don't want to say hate, but really dislike reading. And then I started to read a bit, like for example, these books I just talked about and 9 Perfect Strangers. Great book. Literally great book. I would love to read it again. But my real love for reading started after reading this one. So if you haven't read it yet, go read it. I bought It Starts With Us, but I haven't read it yet because I want to read this one again. And after that I want to read It Starts With Us just because it was March or it was April when I read this one. So it's been a while. So I want to get back into the story and the characters before I want to read the new one. I think I want to film a reading vlog on those 2 books, so stay tuned for that. Okay, then we go to, was it this one? I'm honestly not sure. I think Ugly Love. Haven't I read a book after It Ends With Us? Yes, no, okay, wait. I, again, don't have it with me. I lent it to my sister-in-law. It's The Hope We Hold by Jeremy and Ginger Volo. I really loved their book. They wrote about their lives and mostly like how they met and the story about how their friendship evolved into like courtship and relationship, marriage and everything. And the main subject of the story is God and Jesus' love for us, which I really liked. I really liked those two. I don't don't know, I also watch their videos on YouTube. So I was very excited when they came out with their book. I finished it in 2 days, I think. It was last summer in France. That was a very great book to read and also to learn things from, not only like for pleasure, but also to learn things. So yeah. Then we go to another fiction book, is Ugly Love, the sort of second most popular book from Colleen Hoover, I think, correct me if I'm wrong. I also really enjoyed reading this. It also was a very heavy and hard story. I really like the fact that she switches between characters or timelines and things like that in her books between chapters. For example, in this book, it's about Tate present time and then about Miles past time, which I really enjoyed because then you get to know both characters a bit more than when you're reading a book that's only the point of view from one character. Again, I read this one very, very quick, also in a few days. It wasn't my favorite, but I think it's still a very good book. It's a bit toxic, honestly. But yeah, I think it was a very good book. Then the next one, which is a very cute story in my opinion, which is November 9. This was my favorite book of the year so far. I just felt it was such a cute story. It was an easy read. The characters were, in my opinion, very nice. Of course, Ben in the end turned out to be a bit of a weirdo. How can I talk about this book without spoiling? So yeah, Fallon and Ben, everything comes together in the end of the book, and in some sort of way it's so surreal. It can't happen in real life, you know? Okay, maybe it can, maybe there are people who are like that weird, but I don't know, in my opinion it felt like very strange. That's a great thing about books. It doesn't need to be real or real life or something. But I really, really, really like this one. It was such a cute story. I really like the time jumps because, of course, it's November 9 and it takes place over the course of 6 years, I think. And every year you only read about November 9 in that year. If it makes any sense what I'm saying right now. Yeah, I honestly really enjoyed reading this book. This was highly my number one so far this year, but again, best for last. Then I immediately started reading. The next one was Reminders of Him. In some sort of way, it was more relatable. It's not like that I lived a story like this, but it's because they're a little older and I'm 25, and in the book I think they're 26 and 22 or 23 or something. So it's not an adult read, but it's a little more mature than the, for example, November 9. But I really, really love this book. It took a little long for me. Like I enjoyed like reading every word, but at some point it took a little too long for the story to get a little bit more interesting. But in the end, I really liked it. Oh, and the fun thing, I like those details, is that in the end of the book, after the last chapter, after the epilogue, you see Kenna Rowan's playlist. It's too bright, so I think you can see it. But one character in this book made a playlist for Kenna, and in the end you can see that playlist, and they're like legit songs you and I know. So it's so fun that that's included. I think that's such a cute and nice detail. So the next one is, again, a Colleen Hoover book. Like literally almost every book in this pile of books are Colleen Hoover. But I just really like her writing style. But it's All Your Perfects. It made me feel a little sad. It was, again, a very easy read. I like that it was now and then. The chapters are the present past. I think it's very creative how the main characters met each other. I think that was the fun part about the book. Yeah, it was a very sad story. Again, a pretty good book. Not my favorite from Colleen Hoover and not my favorite of this whole pile. Sometimes I have to think a bit and like try to remember all the books and stuff, but it's a lot about like sort of miscommunication or like not even communicating with each other. And I think it's a sort of, it gives a good lesson or something when you're in a marriage or in a relationship. Communication is key. So that's something I learned from this book, which is nice. Not my favorite. Then it's not young adult, more like a teen book, which is Hard Bones. So it's about this broken girl from a broken family and a broken relationship with her mom. She moves to her dad's house. She meets a guy and it's like a summer fling. And there are all sorts of things that are going on. It was a very, very young book. So maybe this is my least favorite. I think it was, again, a very easy and nice read. I still like the writing style, but it's just that I can't relate to it at all because the characters are so freaking young. They're teens. So I really love the cover, that satin matte cover, which I really like. Okay, unpopular opinion. The book that I disliked the most. I would never read it again. I would give this book away for somebody else to read and never give it back, which is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I'm very sorry for the people who are gonna think like, what the heck, how can you dislike this book? To me, this was a 1 out of 5, even a 0 out of 5 if I could give 0 stars. I'm sorry, but I just want to be honest with you, but I really didn't like this book. Of course, the title of the book already says it a bit, like The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And she is an actress in this toxic movie Hollywood world life, marrying people because of like the picture and the, I don't know. There's honestly not a good word I can say about this book. The end is also so weird and strange. Yeah, I know that like literally everybody likes this book, loves this book, even has this book on their top 3 or even like their number 1 best book ever. But I'm just not one of them. In the end of the book, again, like everything sums up and everything becomes clear why she chooses a very not well-known writer. Can't remember that well, but why she chose her also was like such a weird ending. Enough about this one. The last 2. First we have Regretting You, a little more of a thicker book. I couldn't relate, but I really felt so sorry for the mother of Clara. Clara is the main character in this book. You really need to read this for you to understand what is so sad in this book. I have to say that I really didn't like Clara. She was such an annoying teenager, and she was so disrespectful to her mom, which I felt was so bad. And there was so many secrets Morgan was keeping from Clara. Morgan is Clara's mom, so of course I can understand that Clara was like touching in the dark, you know, but she was so like, sometimes I like, if she would be in front of me, I would like grab her and like, you know what I mean? I really like the writing style. Again, a very easy read. Like the ending of the book was nice. Like everybody got united with each other and everything was good. Like it's a happy ending, so that's great. But when you don't like a character in a book, it makes it a little harder for you to finish a book, I think, or even to like a book. The book was okay to me, not my favorite, but that's all I want to say about this book. And then the best for last, Darling Venom. It's such a weird title or book title, but it makes so much sense when you're reading the book, when you finish the book. I feel like this book was amazing. This was literally my favorite book of the whole year, fiction-wise. I loved reading this book. It is so beautifully written. There are so many beautiful quotes that you like want to highlight or want to post on Instagram or something. I really liked all the characters in this book. It was such, again, a rough story and a very sad story, but in the end it says here, my first love ended in tragedy, my second began with his brother. So that gives like a little hint of this book and what it's about. I have to say that it wasn't an easy read. There were some harder words. Maybe it's an easy read for someone whose mother tongue is English, mine is Dutch. It was a little harder of a read. And of course I'm used to like Colleen Hoover books, so I was used to that writing style. I loved it so much. It was an amazing story. I honestly would love to read this book again. Unfortunately, then you don't have like the feeling when you start reading a new book. It doesn't have that much spice, which I honestly really enjoy. I don't like to read spicy scenes or something. There are some spicy scenes going on in this book, but not as many as in some other books I've read. Yeah, this was definitely my favorite one. I rambled a lot about this book, but go read it. And then I have 2 unfinished books because I'm reading them at the same time. Well, not at the same time, but I started reading Shatter Me. I'm not far at all. I'm only like 1/5 in, so I can't say anything about the book yet. And then I went to Valencia and I wanted to read a new book. It's Hopeless. I bought the whole series, and if you have seen my Valencia vlogs, then you already know the story about why I already had the whole series except for Hopeless. But I liked it so far. I think same story as Shatter Me. I'm like 1/5 in, so I can't say that much about the book yet. But again, Colleen Hoover is so an easy read. Shatter Me is also a very easy read so far, so that's nice. That concludes my 12 books I finished this year. I came to the conclusion that I love reading now. Reading is a hobby of mine now. I am proud to say that I'm a reader now. Yeah, I really love reading, and I have a lot of books on my TBR, but maybe I can share my TBR in another video. Let me know if you would like to know what my TBR is. Thank you so much for watching. Bye guys.